Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, and I thought I would take a minute here to read this recent profile of me in the New York Times. Big W in Fantano land over this one, everybody. Mega excited, super hype, like I'm over the moon, and very happy to have this legitimacy here, which is amazing. So let's go through it. Let me give some commentary on it and maybe give some extra context to some of the quotes here that people have found maybe a little controversial. And we'll get through it and we'll have a good time. So let's do it, starting with the title, The Only Music Critic Who Matters If You're Under 25, which a lot of people took issue with because there are quite a few people in my audience that are over the age of 25. So, 25 is not the cutoff, people. It's not the cutoff. Not that I guess this implies that fully, but Anthony Fantano reviews albums and songs on his YouTube channel, The Needle Drop, bringing an old art to a new medium and perhaps ensuring it has a future. A sentiment I don't entirely disagree with, but I don't even feel new at this point. I think what I'm doing and what a lot of other people are doing on social media now in terms of music content is not old, it's not new, but it's becoming more established. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. Shout out to Joe for writing the piece. Joe! Who I had a handful of very lengthy FaceTime and phone convos with in order to do this interview. So, we had some very in-depth back and forths about all of this, and much of what we talked about turned up. And here, starting with the first section, he says, a few years ago, the Rhode Island noise rock band Daughters had an unlikely breakthrough thanks in no small part to a goofy, bald-headed online music enthusiast. Shout out to Ian Cohen. The group had just released its first new album in 8 years, and although the music's punishing heaviness wasn't exactly welcoming to a wide audience, Daughters' tour had sold out, and its label noticed a sudden spike in sales and streams, the drummer John Syverson recalled. Syverson, who was approaching 40, even heard from a cousin half his age who excitedly tried to explain the uptick in attention. "Oh my God," the teenager told him. "The Melon reviewed your album. He wore the yellow flannel. He gave it a 10 out of 10. Syverson had no idea what his cousin was talking about, but to a certain subset of young music fans, Daughters might as well have hit the Powerball jackpot. This is a story that I told Joe, just citing an interaction I had with John outside of a show from Daughters that I caught. And, and he told me all of that. I don't know if Joe then reached out to John to kind of confirm all of it, but I'm assuming so, since he is, sort of like calling him out by name here. But yeah, he told me directly, like, whoa, your review came out and there was this huge reaction and it was crazy. And I don't know. I think it's a great record. I think Daughters are a very good band, and I'm glad that I was able to push that in their direction because I think that they deserve it. I think it's a special record. The influential evangelist in question is the YouTuber named Anthony Fantano, 34, about to turn 35, who has been speaking album and song reviews directly into a camera. For more than a decade on The Needle Drop, his channel with 2.26 million subscribers, making him probably the most popular music critic left standing. Fantano channel almost like 1.2 million as well, across thousands of videos on multiple platforms, including a recent partnership with the Amazon-owned live streaming site Twitch. Fantano has built up a legion of followers and imitators who traded nicknames. Melon is for the critic's pale dome. There's also a hilarious backstory with that in regards to Zombie. Shout out to him. Inside jokes and Easter eggs. Wearing a yellow flannel shirt signals a rave review. Red flannel means a pan. Also, along the way, he has helped to push a notoriously insular and endangered art form, the record review, to a new default medium and younger audience. I would hope so. I mean, I would hate for the album review in the abstract to die. I would hope in some respect offloading it onto YouTube would make it more interesting or palatable or more acceptable. Though generally I think critics are still pretty widely hated, but still serve a role. Taking his early cues from his favorite video game vloggers and upstart wine critic turned entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk, shout out to Gary, who I've emailed before and was a huge inspiration to me back in the day. Because I just sort of saw what he was doing with wine and reviewing wine. He doesn't do it anymore, I don't believe, at least not regularly. And I don't know. I don't even drink. And I thought it was passionate. I thought it was exciting. I thought it was great. I thought if this guy could build a platform, an empire, talking about wine, I could certainly do something talking about music. Few have built the sort of independent one-man empire that Fantano has from his suburban Connecticut home, with merchandise, a paying pool of Patreon subscribers. We kind of started a Patreon around when it's becoming increasingly clear that YouTube can potentially be a bit of a volatile platform sometimes, and you don't know what content is going to be safe and what content isn't. I just don't really want the rug pulled out from under me. So, Patreon just kind of seems like a sensible place to be. And now that it is established, and it's really good, by the way, check out the Patreon link down below. It's something that we can really push if something were to happen in terms of like YouTube not fully working out. If you want to build anything from the ground up, in my opinion, I think it's important to not have all of your eggs in one basket. Obviously, a lot of what is around now is heavily influenced by my aesthetic, my style, my delivery. Fantano, a vegan teetotaler, said recently over FaceTime, where he was as long-winded as in his videos, which often top 10 minutes. Yes, I did say that. Some people did take issue with this. And look, that wasn't just like a random brag that I threw out there to be like, ugh, everyone's so obviously influenced by me right now. I'm so influential right now. Joe and I were talking quite a while about just the current music review landscape in terms of just all the new media stuff and my impact on that, or the people who have kind of taken off of that, which, I know of that because there are music reviewers who have exactly almost the same setup as me. There are music essayists and other music related content creators who have told me like, oh man, you've inspired a lot of what I do and I love your work and so on and so forth. So, I'm getting that firsthand. He noted that he was not the first to bring the early YouTuber articulate rant treatment to music. I was not. Shout out to dudes like Jumble Junkie Music, You're Wrong, I'm Right. Also Sammy Jarouche, Rock It Out Blog. I was eating, sleeping, and bleeding YouTube for quite a long time, he said. I had consciously chosen something that I found to be really uncomplicated because I envisioned the delivery and the makeup as being something that was easy to copy, which is true. I do want more people kind of in on this conversation. I think more people have gotten in on this conversation, and I think ultimately that's a good thing. This month, Fantano posted a video on Twitter that seemed to prove his point, showing a child reviewing a new album by the rapper 6ix9ine with a preternatural bluster obviously modeled on his own. Lucas11 said he had spent hours a day for years watching Fantano and other YouTube music reviewers like Sean C. Shout out to Sean C. before building a bare bones basement setup during the pandemic and starting a channel of his own. Shout out to Lucas too. I loved his very angry rant in response to the 6ix9ine thing. And, I love how psyched he was after I kind of tweeted that clip of him. And, hopefully he sees success. There are a lot of dudes who've been doing this for a long time, and they started young. Joshua Kirk, shout out to that dude. My parents know I'm doing it, and they know that I'll probably be something big one day. I hope you are too, man. But, at the end of the day, like, don't focus as much on that as much as the music. Focus on the musical experience, focus on sharing in good music with other people. That should ultimately be the goal. Lucas said in his interview, adding that he was elated at being noticed by one of his heroes, and then he gained some 1,000 subscribers from the shout out, and that a lot of people are telling me, don't let this go to my head. Don't, man. Don't. Just stay you, man. At the end of the day, like after all this shit, I still feel like a loser. To be frank with you. With more than 900 million views across his YouTube accounts, which is crazy for me to think of, because like we're getting to the point where we're almost to 1 billion views on the Fantano and the Needle Drop channels together. I feel like I need to celebrate that in some way. Fantano, who functions as an entertainer as much as a music critic, has become a touchstone among music-focused millennial and Gen Z content creators, even as they refine and expand upon his format on platforms like TikTok. I've told people multiple times when they ask me, what should I do? Should I get into reviewing music on YouTube? Should I write? I tell people to try everything. Try out the most relevant communication mediums and social media platforms that are here when you are starting. If you're a young person trying to talk to other young people about music, get on TikTok, get on Instagram, and, you can get on YouTube too. YouTube's not dead. As far as I could see, it's not going anywhere. But, if you're a young person who's passionate about TikTok and you love TikTok and you know and understand kind of the TikTok aesthetic in a way naturally that I don't, because I'm not as embedded in it, embrace it and go out and make it work there and see if, you can make that kind of spread out to other platforms, be it a YouTube channel, be it a Patreon page, be it whatever. Dev Lemons, shout out to Dev, who has a great TikTok page, and hopefully we get a chance to collaborate sometime soon. We've been talking about that. A musician and college student whose SongPsych account does bite-sized criticism by way of music theory and news, called Fantano a celebrity and an authority, which is way too nice. Among her cohort, I know many people that just won't listen to something because Fantano was like, it's not worth your time. Another college student and musician, Ethan Fields, shout out to Ethan, who does some really cool shit on TikTok, just kind of reimagining how certain artists do certain songs, has used his time at home during the pandemic to build a TikTok fan base, savvily interpreting popular songs in the style of other musicians. Fantano Fields said was an early influence on his knowing and silly insidery content. Blech. I'm really bad at reading, just so you guys know. I don't think there's anyone else like him who's had that reach, Fields said. If you told somebody on the street, name a music critic right now, if they're under the age of 25, they'll say Anthony Fantano. And I guess when asked the same question, he couldn't really bring up another name. Look up some other music reviewers, guys. Really, please do. Predictably, the Needle Drop's most popular videos take on polarizing stars like West, Eminem, Chance the Rapper. Fantano often avoids big ticket top 40, which could bring him more views. I mean, there are points every week where I'm maybe like avoiding a handful of top 40 albums I could be talking about, but as kind of the piece here cites, I guess in another few sentences or so, I like to try to take the time to cover stuff that people don't know quite as well, or maybe records that aren't getting as much traction, like the Backwash album, for example, or the Sebdeliza record, for example, which, I think are fantastic, or the new Slaus and Malone EP. I'd love to start a conversation about that because I think there's so many cool ideas on it. And I'd rather review that than, just some generic ass pop album, though, I'm not against reviewing those in general. I want to try to break it up. I don't want every review to be that. I want to try to scratch different emotional and stylistic itches, I guess. There's no number of negative reviews I can give to Nav that can end his career, Fantano said, referencing his takedowns of the slightly popular rapper, but I feel like I can break an artist. I do have the power to do that. The placement of this quote is odd because it feels like it's in relation to the previous paragraph, when in reality, this is also kind of going off of the larger conversation that Joe and I were having about influence in general. Joe had asked me about sort of the impact of my negative reviews and whether or not I think about that. And I certainly am conscious of it in respect to, I'm not trying to find the most obscure artists and demos and albums out here that nobody knows about and just be like, this is the worst. This is shit. This is terrible, because culturally and socially, I think there's not really a whole lot to be gained from that. But, I feel like criticizing stuff that is wildly popular or is top 40 is totally fair game. And I was just trying to illustrate the fact that, not that I'm trying to ruin Nav's career. I'm not. I've said that multiple times. But I can't ruin Nav's career with a negative review. He's pretty established in the music industry, and he's going to do what he's going to do regardless of what I think. So I don't worry about that so much. But like I said, what I can do is I can break an artist, not physically, but I can, find an artist or find a record that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about or paying attention to, and give that some shine, give that some attention, which I think is ultimately a good thing. It's a good thing that you can do that. And, I feel like the fact that I have the power to do that has been shown in the multiple artists over the years that have gained quite a bit of traction off of a positive Fantano review, which, again, is something that I know because those artists have told me that directly. I'm not going to list them off. A child of divorce in Connecticut, Fantano began his musical journey with the radio and MTV before he fell hard into rock and nu metal around the turn of the millennium, obsessing over bands like Korn and Slipknot, which I did enjoy them in high school. And then after that, I kind of went into my punk phase and, went into sort of a punk and hip hop and singer-songwriter phase after that. And not that I didn't enjoy, hip hop before kind of my nu metal phase. I did. I was kind of just listening to everything the pop radio and MTV was throwing at me and just kind of liking everything. Whether that be Red Hot Chili Peppers, whether that be Rage Against the Machine, whether that be Boyz II Men, whether that be Tupac or Coolio or whatever. At Southern Connecticut State University, he threw himself into the college radio station, eventually becoming its general manager, graduating into the dawn of a recession, which is true, working at a pizza place, interning at NPR, where he briefly wrote about music. I interned at a local NPR station. I briefly wrote about music for NPR Music, and I helmed a Little Heard podcast that anticipated the needle drop, but an editor's headline story he wrote, which inflamed Bob Dylan fans over at the NPR music page, convinced Fantano that he only wanted to work for himself. Yeah. I mean, the headline really kind of ruined that 50 debut albums that weren't as popular playlist for me, and just kind of really turned me off to the whole idea of having my, writing misconstrued off of like a headline that I didn't agree with. It was a golden age of music blogs, and Fantano was watching the landscape shift underneath the usual gatekeepers, which is true. That was definitely a huge inspiration to me. Just got on camera, as it says here. Seeing those sites like Stereo Gum and Gorilla versus Bear and Consequence of Sound, come up in the way that they did. Even if I didn't agree with what a lot of they were saying or a lot of what they were pushing out there in terms of like, this is good, this is bad, I did like the model. I wanted to be a part of that in my own way. He said he was only ever an occasional reader of Pitchfork, the defining music publication of his generation. Me and some of my friends thought it was funny when they did the Jet Monkey Pee-Pee video, which I mean is certainly a huge inspiration to me in terms of like the more mimetic and just kind of like bullshit reviews I do, where it's, just like the MGK thing, where it's kind of more of a joke or tongue in cheek. Also around that time, I feel like I didn't necessarily need to dive too much down the Pitchfork rabbit hole because, we were at the college station. I had tons of people around me listening to great stuff who, I mean, I'm sure some of them read Pitchfork, but I guess just me personally, you know what I mean? I had a lot of people who were into hip hop and electronic music and metal music and indie music and a lot of different stuff. And I get recommendations off them. I'd be checking all the CDs that came in from the various PR people, thanks to us being a part of CMJ. If you don't know what CMJ is, look it up. But, we had a lot of great new music coming into the station every day. And that's where, I was getting turned on to bands like Man and Death from Above and a whole host of other things. Having spent a lot of time on the vulgar message board, 4chan, Fantano infused his internet presence with winks, contrarian irreverence, and attempts at humor. Emphasis on that, because I don't think I'm very funny a lot of the time. Like a recurring roommate character that is just Fantano and a fake mustache. We need a citation on that, Joe. He chalked up the backlash he has faced to jealousy, which I did say that, but it wasn't necessarily in the context of what is being talked about in the past two topics. It's more just when Joe and I were talking about this, it was more as a result of like a sentiment that there is kind of that friction between me and some more traditional music writers. Maybe people feel like I'm not entitled to my platform, which there are some people who do feel that way. I've been told that by people who feel like I don't, deserve it. Ultimately, it's Fantano's self-image as an outsider that continues to animate much of his work, even as he has become hugely popular, a sort of gatekeeper of his own. Still, he maintains almost no relationship with record labels or the broader music industry. I've gotten some shout-outs and love and appreciation from various record labels out there, and when I do, I greatly appreciate it. But, ultimately, I mean, they know that I have a job to do. I know they have a job to do. And that's, ultimately what I think kind of paints the relationship at the end of the day. And he has turned down numerous offers to be absorbed by a larger brand, which is true. I don't have to sell my soul to basically make the same amount of money I'm making now, he said. Or even less, because I feel like the conversation or the thing I was referencing in conversation when that had come up with Joe was about an offer I had very early on, which if I had taken it, I think would have put me in a very different place, not as great a place I think I would be in right now if I just didn't keep things independent. As for the future of music criticism and his role in it, Fantano could only blow a raspberry. Does he even care? In the traditional sense, I said, probably not. Whether it's Instagram posts, TikTok videos, or Twitter threads, Fantano added, what's most important to me is not the form that it takes or the vehicle that it's being driven to me in, but really that it's observant, that it's passionate, and that the people who are doing it care, which, again, I will kind of expound upon that a little more and say, music criticism to me, it doesn't really matter if it maintains like exactly the sound or style or whatever it has originally or it's known for in the 60s and 70s. Like, honestly, fuck that. Music criticism to me only really matters if there's heart in it. And that, I don't know, it's effective no matter what shape it's taking. And that is the piece. And that is the piece, everybody. That is the piece. And again, super happy to have it. Very happy with how it came out generally. And once more, shout out to Joe for doing the interview and making it all come together and just being a good dude. So this has been great. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the piece, enjoyed the coverage, and caught it yourself the week that it came out. You're the best. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, The New York Times, music critic who matters if you're under 25, forever.